Okay, hello. Uh, I am going to give you a little tour here of my manufacturing plant that I have made in Fallout 4 using the base building mods. Most of the things I've used in here have been in the vault setting here, which is of course a DLC. Um, did a lot of things structurally, just with the atrium floors and the railings, as you see here. The manufacturing equipment is for some reason in power. And go all the way over here to manufacturing, where you can find your conveyor belts, the machinery, which are the actual builders that will be at the end of the line here, and these are where you'll find the hoppers and the sorters that I have used in this setup here. Okay, to start off, the first thing I did is I had this um, conveyor storage thing here, um, which was my original idea. It was just to, once I come back from doing a mission or whatever, and I've scrapped everything, I was just going to put all the components in here, and it was going to feed into this vacuum hopper, which then started it down the line. I've since modified that, and as you can see, there's a long trail going down there. I'll explain that here in a moment. So essentially, this is the start of the production line. Here I have a switch which allows me to turn on or off the vacuum hopper. So you can see here, got the switch connected via various wall connectors here to our main power, which is down here, which we'll get to see later. And of course, all of these other wires and everything you see are all connected. Explain those as well. So anyway, turn this back on. So as something enters in here, the vacuum hopper here, it hits our first sorter, which I've done component sorting. So you can actually, if you don't want to break down an object, say you've got, a toaster, and you put that in here, and if it has a spring in it, the toaster will actually meet that criteria and fall into this hopper. Personally, I don't like to send full objects down this line, purely because they just behave strangely on the belts. And also a glitch I should mention here: the belt doesn't look like it's moving, but as you can see, I hop on it and it moves me. It actually is moving. They were all showing moving for a while, but then for some reason something happened and half of them just look like they're static, whereas other ones look like they move. But they are in fact moving, as you can tell. Anyway, so here, and I got this set up. Basically, I've got it. My main things I use it for are ammunition production. Um, so, and some weapons. So a lot of the components you'll see me have here in the sorters are for that purpose. You could, of course, put whatever you wanted in here. If you do not know how any of this works, when you have a sorter or a component sorter, you have to put one of the objects that you want into this, and that counts as the, is this component being passed into here, this thing. So I have to put one spring into this component sorter for it to be able to sort out springs that come into it. Again, that goes into this hopper. And then here is my next sorter. I have screws, and then I have aluminum. Each one has their own hopper, of course. And as you can see, the hoppers have these little pylons here that allow it to have power. And what I did is, I'll show you here at the bottom when I get there, is I have switches controlling each hopper individually. So when I'm down there at the control panel, say I want to release some springs and some aluminum, I can flip those switches, which then in turn will travel through the wires and power those two hoppers on, and thus open them up, releasing the contents. And when I have enough of what I want, I'll flip it and they'll close up again. So here you can see I have, 121 aluminum, I have 161 screws, 148 springs. I had to put a lot of these little railing ladder things here so I could get around without hopping over everything. So if the object going down the line, say it's steel, has not been sorted out, it'll continue along this conveyor, which will then come over here, and just due to the way I was building and the way this is my little vault, I've got some people in here, so I had some limitations on the size of everything I was building. I actually just have this where the components or whatever coming down the belt will actually just fall down onto this one. And this one, of course, is tethered here for power, which is tethered to this one. And this belt is underneath those first hoppers. So if I do release any aluminum, it'll fall onto this belt. Whereas the other belt I just showed you was ones that are not sorted. And of course this has some power going down here and eventually down through here to get to the power. I will explain this belt in a moment. I'm just going to show you the non-sorted path for a moment here. Okay, and sorry, just got a text message. Anyway, the non-sorted component, steel, is what I was using as an example, falls onto this conveyor and then meets my next set of sorters and hoppers. In this one I have oil, and then we have adhesive, plastic, and lead. And again, each one of these has their own hoppers. So if it does, again, I was using steel as the example, so it's not going to meet any of those. But if any of them were, say we had some oil, it would get sorted and put into this hopper. Now, as I had mentioned before, here is the first set of sorters and hoppers, where if I do release them, they'll fall onto this conveyor belt, which goes underneath the floor here. And you can see kind of makes the right turn. The, again, steel in the example we're using here does not get sorted, so it continues along this belt, which, as you can see, goes down here. See, there's one of those moving belts in. Get down to my next level. So, this one right here, where my little dot is, that is the sorted first belt. So if anything from the first hoppers, such as aluminum, gets released, it's going to come down through the floor, come down to a right angle here, and sorry, I've got some copper on the floor. That happens sometimes. It's going to come down this belt and will fall onto this belt. And this belt was the second one I had shown you. Oh my gosh. Sorry, there must have been a clog on the belt system and caused all of these to fall off. That's what I was mentioning before, why I don't like to send full unscrapped components down the belt line, because this does happen. They'll fall off belts and land in random places. Anyway, this is the second set of hoppers. So if I do send anything through those will get sent onto this belt, which then will come around here and go down there. And this belt is from the non-sorted second round. So the steel would be falling down this one, and it'll come back here and fall into this. So at this point, all of the sorted and or non-sorted items will converge onto this one belt here. So this belt my little cursor is pointing at here is the sorted first items, like through the first hoppers if I release them. This one is from the non-sorted second line of hoppers. Goes up here. And this belt is from the sorted second line of hoppers. So again, if I release any of the two previous set of hoppers or an unsorted object, they will all eventually merge and meet right here onto this belt. And again, it's kind of embarrassing. I've got all these materials everywhere. I did not notice. So anyway, sorted or non-sorted, they all meet and merge onto this belt, which then has my last set of hoppers. I'm gonna have to go around to get here. This is the power generator I was referring to earlier. We'll get to that. There's the switches I was referring to. Again, we'll get to that. Okay, so they all converge down to here, sorted and non-sorted from all of the previous floors. And again, I have my sorters and hoppers. So here's steel, so that's what we're using as our example. It would actually get sorted, put into that first hopper. Come down here, then we got fertilizer, nuclear material, and copper. And of course, if whatever we had sent from the original thing does not meet any of those criteria, it will continue down this belt. Also, if it was sorted from the previous 2 floors, it will continue on this belt down to this level, which, if I release any of these hoppers from the last sort, will also go on the same conveyor here as all of the other previous belts, sorted or non-sorted. They will come around here. And so now any material I have released from a hopper or that has not been sorted by the components will come to this point. Here I have a diverter arm, which is controlled by this switch I've labeled return. And basically, if I flip that switch, this diverter arm will swing to the left, and it'll send everything down to this belt, which bypasses all of my final production stages, and will come into this conveyor lift to then drop it down onto this belt, which is at the end of all of the production lines, and send it into this conveyor storage, which is then connected to the return hopper, or return vacuum, I should say, which is then, of course, ran all the way upstairs and to that belt, which is that long belt I showed you at the beginning. So anything that doesn't get sorted by any of the hoppers or any of the conveyor sorters and hits the return line or does not get used up by these productions will come up here. And again, I have a switch to turn this on or off. Will eventually go back to this return line, go all the way back to the beginning of the system, which again is why I have a switch here, because I don't want things just, forever cycling through the system. So I can turn this vacuum hopper off or the one at the beginning off to stop them from traveling through the system. Here's my little R for return. Reminds me of the rocket logo from Pokemon. Anyway, okay, so back to all of my builders. So let's say, for example, turn off my return here. I now have the first conveyor sorter, which will then take any materials I have dropped from the hoppers, presumably, because at this point if I am building something specific, I'll have released them from the hoppers. I've put all of these components in here, one of each, to set as a criteria of sorting. So if any adhesive, copper, aluminum, anything like that enters here, it will be sorted and go out onto this contraption here, which I have branched so that it can make 3, because if I had one sorter here and sorted out, steel, then it would not make it down to this next hopper. So if any of that production equipment needed steel, it wouldn't get it. So of course, all 3 of these share a lot of the same components they need to make things. So this is why I have this set up. And again, I have more diverter arms here. I've got one there and one there, set up to their own switches. So I can hit this one if I don't want it going into the first, but I want it going into the second. And this one will then funnel everything into the third. Hit these diverter arms and make it all the way down here. So again, this is why I've labeled it a semi-auto manufacturing plant, as I do have to flip a lot of switches depending on what I'm trying to make. This first one is my ammunition plant, and then I have my energy weapon forge and my explosives mill. So a lot of times I'm really just making ammunition and grenades. Those are my main two that I use. And of course, at the end of each one of these, I have a storage. So when it's done creating whatever it's making, will come in here to the storage and I can pull it out. Again, I was limited by size based on this room. For the record, I am actually in the Vault 88. What do they call these things? Workshop. I'm in the Vault 88 workshop, which is located. Here's a good reference point. Diamond City is over here, and here's Vault 8. And the main entrance to Vault 88 is that way, and I believe at this point here is where you can start building. This was actually just a large sort of cave system. And when I say large, if you have not seen Vault 88 workshop area, it is massive. Which is kind of unfortunate because, as I'll show here, if you look up in the upper right-hand corner, my size meter is, 75, 80% maxed out just from having this, what I would consider a relatively small vault setup and just this manufacturing plant. Because I could probably put 8 of these if I just copy and pasted this whole setup into this entire cave system. It's massive. Anyway, so that is the basic pathways, if you will, of the manufacturing system I have set up here. I will come down here now and show you all of my switches. Which again, that's our main power source. And here's the terminal I use to determine what I'm going to actually manufacture. So, my ammunition plant, my explosive. So, ammunition, I can come in here and tell it what I want it to actually produce. When you select one, it'll then come up and tell you what's required. So, lead and fertilizer, just to make that particular ammunition. In here, you can also, again, if you've never seen these, you can change all kind of things. Your hopper control, you can change how fast it spits things out and how strong it spit things out. For some reason, I've never messed with the output force. I just feel like that would cause more problems than I need, especially with all of my copper all over the floor as it was in the upper levels. So then the main power, of course, you have to have everything that you want to control connected to the terminal, which is why I have it set up as the first thing that connects to the power grid here. Because then via all these other cords that need power, it is connected to this. Here I've got my vacuum and belt. Again, this vacuum is a redundant switch for the first vacuum hopper up there. I can flip this and it'll turn that off. And this will turn off the belts. So here some of them stopped there. Some of them, of course, did not, because they're being powered through some of this complicated network system here. So here's the main power pole I have, which is then giving power to all these switches, which, as I mentioned, go to all the hoppers. So these will come up here and flow through these various lines out to the hoppers. So for that ammunition I was making, I needed fertilizer. So I swip that one and lead. Flip that one. And see here, this is the fertilizer hopper. Of course, it's empty, so nothing's coming out. But if it were, it would be spitting them out here. I have it set to 1 item per second. Go ahead and turn that off since nothing's in there, and turn the lead off. It will take a little bit for the lead to show up since it's on a higher level. I think I have it on the 2nd or 3rd level. So it'll take it a while to come down through all of these beltway systems here, and then on the other wall, I've got the other two out here. I got copper and my nuclear material. You can hear some of the component sorters passing that lead through now. So all in all, I believe I have 11. I got 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, and 2 on the other side. Yeah, so I have 11 sorter hopper combinations, so I can have 11 ingredients basically that I can distribute at any one time. And of course, you can always go back and change what you're sorting. Like I said, this is the main setup I prefer for what I'm trying to make. So here you can see some lead. One, I can hear all the other ones coming. The component sorters and sorters are a little strange. They don't exactly spit them out as they take them in. Sometimes they do hoard them, so it'll spit out 2 or 3 at a time, which is a little strange. Here I will show you an example of what I was talking about, sending things to one versus the other. I actually want lead to go into this one, so I'm not going to. Now lead's going to be filling up that one. Of course, I don't have any fertilizer, so it's not going to do me any good. Here we go. We'll sort some of these out. Hits that diverter. Hits that diverter. And then very, very slowly, it'll make it into the last one. So again, I can control 3. I mean, you could essentially put up all of your production off of one sorter if you had enough vertical space here. Again, I did not. So I'm going to go ahead and take all this lead out here. Copper, lead. Oh, actually got some ammunition that was made that I didn't pick up. Take some lead out of there. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and flip this return arm on. And place some items on the belt here. Steel and... Sorry. So now these, of course, will bypass this entire production system here. Come down this line, and then you'll see them come up here. I had to find a way to merge this belt with the main belt, and really the only way to achieve that efficiently was to put this, what do they call it? Conveyor belt lift on here, and then have it drop onto that belt. So you'll see them here in a second. Drop on there, into the storage, which is then vacuum here is going to suck them out, and it's going to go up and feed through all of those lifts and conveyor belts back into the system, at which point, since those are components I have being sorted, will be sorted back into the appropriate hoppers. I have all the hoppers off so they won't come back down the line, they'll just get sorted as they should. Put the other things back here. 17. And I try not to put more than like 20 of anything on the belt system. See, as you can see here, this copper, that does this weird rolling thing. That's a large reason of why I had so many of them on the floor, because they just behave strangely. Even though it's a bar of copper, it's rolling like it's a cylinder. And it causes some problems when it's mixed with other things. Very strange. And like I said, I was doing tests on different objects down the conveyor belt system just to see how they behaved. Especially for these 2 drop points I had, which I showed you here earlier. That merges everything onto the same belt. So this drop, that drop, I had to make them as minimal as possible because of, some objects seem to bounce more on the belts, whereas the copper seems to be, more rolly. that sort of thing. So this was the best setup I could come up with for merging those. I had to make the drops very gentle, because originally I had them, I would have this belt drop from right about here. This was another angled belt, and it would drop onto here, but a lot of those ended up bouncing off and falling down here. Again, pieces everywhere. So that is the essential setup. In case you didn't see for my hoppers, out back upstairs here. Of course, it has this nice elevator I can use. And I mostly put all these railings here for when I was building things, so that if I was backing up trying to get something in place, I wouldn't accidentally fall off. Here's some plastic, of course. So there's the steel, which is going to be making its way down the line and be sorted by the steel hopper. Here's what I was talking about. For some reason, even though it gets one at a time, it'll kind of hold on to them and spit out a few at a time, which again is part of what causes problems later on down the belt, which is why things tend to fall off. Anyway, here's my hopper powers. Like, all of these are being then routed over to the main wall here I have, where everything's connected to this switches. That's the basic same setup I've got on all the levels for the hoppers. That's how I got them controlled. Also important to note, in case you did not know, anything connected belt-wise will share power. So I have this first little segment here powered, which then, of course, because it's connected to this, will power this, power that, power that, power that, etc., etc. So anything that's any belt system that's connected to something with power will be powered. So here again, I have this belt, which then powers. I have so much crap all over the floor. All of the sorters and this particular conveyor line, which is why I was able to have that switch below labeled belts, because I can turn off a large chunk of the belts that are powered by one setup I've got going. So the original, like if I turn off the original vacuum switch I had downstairs, it is what powers the first vacuum hopper, which powers the initial belt system. So if I turn that off, that turns off the other belts. But if I turn this off, it turns off the main part of the belt. Of course, you can see it also turns off some of the lights since there's no power being given to them. But that is the essential setup of my little manufacturing plant here. Again, this is my super reactor. It gives out 500 power. And again, in case you did not know, in the Vault building system and that DLC, anything connected via the floors or any component at all has power. So I had that large reactor there, and because it's connected via all these floors, it does actually share power. So that's how you can power stuff in your Vault without having to actually put a generator in it. A lot of times they will make you put little power conduits on the wall too, for various other items. Anyway, this is just about the manufacturing plant. Come back here. And here's my Victor. It's my variable intelligent combat tactical oriented robot, I believe is the acronym I chose. Call him Victor. Had to have all these birds here because the raiders were sneaking in and destroying all my work. But anyway, that is the basic setup here of my little manufacturing plant. All of the unsorted components, of course, I don't use. I have in here close to this thing, so if I do eventually change what needs to be sorted, I can take one out, put it in a sorter, and then send these on down the line to be sorted. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask them. If you have any ideas of any way I can optimize this, or any other ideas or questions about how I've wired things, please let me know. Thanks for watching.